My name is Carrie Wilson, and I'm an English teacher here at TCTC. So when I first heard that the plane hit the first tower, I was on my way to YSU. I had just started back to YSU for my teaching degree, and I was like, oh, okay, not really thinking anything about it. And then when I got to YSU, I had my first class and everybody's buzzing about it. And my professor comes in and tells us that the other plane hit, and they ended up closing YSU. And then I went to my job. At the time I was working at the mall, at the Southern Park Mall, and they closed down the mall, and I went home and everybody was just in shock. And just watching it, and I remember crying, and just even talking about it is kind of gets me emotional. As far as impacting my life, it was just emotional to me. I felt just sad, and everybody was sad and couldn't believe it. Luckily for me, I didn't see Flight 93 go over, but I have gone to the memorial, and I went to the 9/11 memorial, and it was just very sad, and just, it takes you back to that time and how just devastating it was. So after that happened, I will tell you, I know right now, I feel like our country is probably more divided than I've ever seen it. It was the most unified I have ever seen our country. Everybody was together, and it was the most patriotic I have ever felt in my entire life because of it, because it was like an us, we're strong and we can get through this. And, even though, those Twin Towers were in shambles, it was we can rise above that. So that's how it was. It was actually very, I felt a lot of positivity came after that, even though it was negative and we hit our low, but then we became better.
My name is Mrs. Scott, and I am a government teacher here at the TCTC. I was in, I believe, second period teaching my government class, and I think the news kind of just circulated throughout the hallways that something had happened. I was teaching a government class, and then at the time we heard it, we all had little tiny TVs in our room, and I flipped on the TV, and of course, being a current event, and I teach government, we started talking. We were watching. We were actually watching a reporter in the Pentagon reporting on the first two towers being hit. As he was speaking, the Pentagon got hit, and the camera shook. The reporter says, I think something happened, I think something happened. It was incredible to watch. And I told my students, you're not watching a news report, you're watching history happen. Because we actually watched the Pentagon get hit as it was happening versus a reporter reporting on the history of what happened. It was a crazy moment. I think everybody's life was impacted in that it brought about a new sense of instability in our place in the world as a country. The idea of terrorism, the idea of people, not countries, but people, individuals, smaller groups, impacting the lives of Americans individually versus targeting just the United States. I had remembered a previous article that we had looked at the year before when we were discussing the events, and I told the kids, I said, I bet this is the guy who did it. And to have a person, an individual targeting the United States versus a country just gave a different sense of fear, I think, to the people of the United States.
My name is John Pettit, and I teach industrial technology. Where was I at when I heard the first plane hit the tower? I was at Bristol High School getting ready to leave and come to Trumbull Career Technical Center for my lab. My life was impacted by 9/11. The biggest impact was it was the biggest reason I joined the Army. One of the biggest reasons I joined the Army.
I'm Ms. Finaghy. I teach the exercise science and sports medicine program here at TCTC. When I heard the first plane hit the tower, I was actually sitting in my second period physics class, my senior year of high school. One of the other science teachers came in and she said, oh, we're being attacked, and none of us really believed her because she was kind of a goofy, science teacher. So we were all kind of surprised and didn't really know if we should believe what she was saying at the time. I think all of our lives really changed drastically after this event. Selfishly, being that I was a senior in high school, we had a lot of trips that we were supposed to go on my senior year, and unfortunately all of those were canceled because of safety issues. But I think as a whole, our country changed drastically in terms of, watching our own backs and realizing that, even though we are the United States, that people are our enemies out there, and they are willing to do whatever they have to do to try to hurt us. I think that was a hard lesson to learn.
My name is Mrs. Rankin, and I'm the Dean of Students. I was actually in senior government class. I was in 12th grade when the first tower was hit. We were in the middle of a lesson, and I remember at the time my government teacher got a call on his phone in his classroom, and he immediately turned on the news like live, which was not something he ever did. And so for him to just stop a lesson entirely and turn on the TV, that alone, everybody was like, what's going on? And then we just literally watched what was happening and unfolding, and actually saw the second tower hit live. We were watching it live. My life has been impacted after this event. I would say nothing really has ever really been the same since. It's kind of the major, event to mark the before and after of my generation. People talk, older generations, like when Pearl Harbor was hit, and that kind of was for that generation, the before and after. That was kind of the moment for my generation. Nothing really felt the same afterwards. Traveling, airplane travel changed drastically. Security measures changed drastically. So everything kind of shifted. Everybody was, a little afraid, of what was going to happen and what the future held for our country. I think life after was kind of scary for people. There was, a lot of information. I mean, it was very scary to be attacked on our own soil. And I think that was a very unsettling feeling for all Americans at the time. And in not just one location, multiple locations. And, especially something so much as air travel, typically people think is pretty safe and secure. And I think everybody, really felt unsure and unsafe even about that at the time.